All right. Hey, everybody. It's Mike Swaney, Vice President of Growth Consulting at Intelligent Demand. Today, I am joined by Carol Noon, our Senior Media Supervisor, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we're seeing in 2023 in the media landscape. And we're also this is also the second in a series of videos that we're sharing with all of you, sitting down with some of our subject matter experts around the agency. So, got a lot of questions for you, Carol. I'm going to put you on the hot spot for a few minutes and can't wait to hear what you have to say, and looking forward to your answers. Okay, tough one right off the bat. This is heavy stuff. Talk a little bit about privacy regulations. We hear the privacy word being thrown around everywhere. Breaches here, breaches there, data. But thinking about it from a media landscape, what are some of the top privacy regulations that are going to into effect in 23 and maybe next year that marketers should be aware of and kind of working toward?
Yeah, that's a great topic. The legislation there is ever evolving. The major shift that we're seeing right now in 2023 is here in the U.S. We're seeing legislation mandating that companies must move away from a passive opt-in process for collecting data to more of an active, informative process where we have to make sure that we're informing consumers when the data is being collected, what's being collected, and give them the opportunity to kind of opt in at that point. And then the other major shift that we're seeing in a lot of the legislation that has been going into effect in 2023 so far and into the year is that consumers need to be able to know exactly what is being collected, have access to that data, and then be able to either update or delete that data if they so choose.
And you said consumers. Is it the same for B2B, or is it different? Does that have any different application?
Yeah, so it's a little tricky in that sense because it is mostly directed towards consumers, but in kind of in our world, any user on the web is technically a consumer, whether that's B2B data or consumer data. And so we just, as marketers, I think, need to be aware of what data are we collecting, making sure that everyone knows that we're collecting that data, and then how it's going to be used.
So that's interesting. I think, does that, from your perspective, does that put more of the power into the consumer's hands and less in the marketer's hands, or does it really make a difference?
I think it does give more power to the consumers, but it also helps to really define what is being, collected and how it's being used. And so I think that in the long run, that actually does benefit marketers so that we can be more efficient and more streamlined with our messaging and relevant, and so that we're not, throwing off the wall messages out to the wrong consumers.
Yeah, you're right, and it just feels like good business to treat consumers and their data, as if it were our own. Okay, so that was some pretty heavy stuff. So we're going to keep it heavy. Let's talk a little bit about how we at ID, how you and your team are helping our clients be successful with compliance initiatives.
Yeah, so here at Intelligent Demand, our team, the media team specifically, we try to stay, up to date in terms of all the policies that are changing. Right now, here in the U.S., it's state by state, and so we have to be very on top of where we're, pushing messaging for our individual clients and making sure that we are utilizing compliant data and vendors, whether that's media vendors or if that's data partners that we're utilizing, that data is being collected appropriately.
And along those lines, what do you see as kind of the future of data privacy in the United States?
In terms of the future, I do see us eventually moving towards more of a federally mandated policy similar to like the GDPR that's in place in Europe. The difficulty right now is that there's not been a consensus on how to really enact that broadly, and also what organization within the government would enforce that. And so that's why we're seeing this push for individual states to enact their own policies. So I think that, the future is that we just need to keep this in mind and know that a larger mandate is probably coming down the pipe.
From a strategy and a planning perspective, that has to be something that is impacting your thinking in terms of how we're hoping our clients succeed. How are you mitigating for that?
The biggest thing from a media planning standpoint, for my team specifically, we definitely make sure that any of the media partners that we're looking to activate campaigns with, that they're collecting their data appropriately, and that there's access to have opt-outs, and that we have the ability to, if we get any complaints or hey, delete my data, that our partners allow us to send that information over and make sure that we're no longer targeting those particular users.
All right, let's change direction here a little bit. We've heard for what to me seems like years. You're probably going like, no, it's not been that long. Cookies, their future. Well, first of all, they're delicious, but cookieless,
wrong kind of cookies.
Agreed. Cookieless future. We've heard a lot about it now for quite a while. What's going on there? Give us like the lowdown, the real take on, are they going away? Are they staying? It's sort of like the weather. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. What's happening with cookies?
Yeah, good question there. I think from my perspective, cookies are definitely going away. The standard right now, or I think the delay right now, is that we need something to be able to collect that data to continue to provide, the relevant messaging. And I think that consumers have realized that they do want relevant messaging, and without that sort of data collection, they'll start getting, ads that don't pertain to them and their interests. And so there's this kind of fine line that we're straddling right now. But, one thing that we are starting to do is really lean more towards first-party data, and then also contextual targeting. So we focus more on aligning our messaging with, similar environments and similar content versus maintaining audience targeting and really being that our focus. So we're trying to beat the cookieless future by starting to shift some of our strategies now.
Is that kind of tied directly to some of the data privacy pieces and parts that are pushing them to go away? Or what's really the driving factor behind the push to end cookies?
Yeah, it's definitely the data privacy and the consumer being able to opt out of that data. With the cookies, it's an automatic, tagging system, and so it's really hard to mitigate who's opting in and who's opting out to that data being collected. And so I think that is really the driving force behind why so many of the big players in the space right now are trying to move away from cookies.
Got it. No, that's really insightful. Just trying to put my own finger around how this really impacts what we're going to be doing going forward. All right, last question. And at ID, we help our clients with integrated growth programs. Sometimes those programs include not only media, but also RevOps. And I know that you and your team and our RevOps team are very, very linked and closely tied together. How does media really tie in with RevOps? How does RevOps tie in with media? How do you guys work together? How do you complement each other? Talk a little bit about the need kind of for both in a modern program.
Yeah, RevOps and media, we definitely work very closely. The collaboration starts from the beginning. We need to make sure that we are aligned in terms of what data we want to collect, how we're ingesting that data, how we're utilizing that to, storytell and attribute and make sure that we're proving our value. I think that the biggest synergy there is just making sure that we're aligned in terms of what data we're looking for and what we need the outputs to be so that we can prove, our ultimate goal, which is, obviously revenue growth. And so we just need to make sure that we have all the inputs to get that story out.
Sounds like there's a lot of close ties with reporting and analytics.
Yes.
How does one help the other? How are you working together to make sure that we can report on the effectiveness of our programs?
Yeah, we work very closely to align on, which data pieces we need to ingest, what platforms are best to take that data and, put all the pieces together. And then it also helps us to make sure that we're getting the data that will help us to prioritize accounts, looking at, which accounts are engaged, which accounts are maybe not engaged at that time, how we develop the journey for our buying committee. So there's a lot of different pieces that we need to make sure that we're aligned so that we can make those informed decisions.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's oftentimes an area where a lot of clients' programs break down, where they aren't able to determine whether a thing has been successful, or if they are, they're using imperfect data and making poor decisions as a result. So, well, hey, really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sitting down with us. This was another in our series of quick videos with our subject matter experts here at Intelligent Demand. Carol, thanks again for your time, and looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah, thanks.